thank you so much for joining me on another episode where we spotlight different business owners, their story, their backstory, and everything that they've learned on their journey. So today I'm super excited to have my guest Thomas with us today. Thomas, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Macy. Thank you for inviting me. That's a very exciting opportunity to share, right? Whenever we have a chance to share, we have a chance to learn from ourselves.
Definitely. So Thomas and I met because we did a very exciting thing recently as we shared the TEDx stage in Cherry Creek HS in Denver, Colorado. And I thought I flew pretty far, but Thomas, I think, flew the farthest out of everyone. So we'll get into a little bit about that, but he had a great talk. I will make sure I link it in the description. I believe it wasn't his first talk and it's not his last either. So I'm excited to learn more about his journey, his story, everything that he has to share. And then, of course, the very coveted TEDx experience. So, Thomas, again, thank you for your time. Do you want to kind of just kick us off and tell me just a little bit about your background and what you're doing?
Good. I think there's a long story. Let's make it short. I'm a former farmer, so I actually got into engineering, looked for, worked in multiple different companies, discovered myself in consulting, and ultimately I ended up starting my own business. And that's when I truly identified myself with what I can offer to the world. And once you start your entrepreneurial activity or journey, one thing that you discover that everybody has talents, and once you understand that from the inside, you open your eyes in a different way to the outside, and say, oh, I can fix this, I can do that. And the world is a huge opportunity to actually start businesses.
Yeah, that's super cool to do, go from a farmer to an engineer into now more of an entrepreneurial role. So I would love for you to share a little bit about your idea that you submitted for TEDx Cherry Creek HS, because that's a really intriguing topic.
Well, it's a bit about that story of trying to figure out, what's up for me, changing jobs and always looking at the problem at the outside and say, what the hell is, I don't like to do this, I don't like to do that. But forgetting that the source, you have to look inside to actually figure out where you find your best fit. In sports is very easy because you have the scouts, they look at the talents, this guy is a good quarterback, and you pick that guy up and put in the right college and the right team in the right position. But in our professional life, we have to be our own scouts and say, where do I have a great game? What is my best position? And try to figure out how you end up on those spots to actually have an outstanding performance, very productive and fulfilling life. Because, we don't have scouts in a professional life. And if you're not in sports, you have to learn to do that.
Yeah, that's super, super interesting because obviously it's hard for us to kind of look into ourselves sometimes. And sometimes we really do need an outside force kind of guiding us through that journey. Um, Obviously, it's a very long process. It's a very long thing. So we're obviously not going to talk all about it. But what do you think for people who really want to start doing that, looking more into themselves, finding their purpose, finding their why? What do you think? What do you think is a small first step they can start taking to finding that about themselves?
For me, I think the first step was to identify what I really, makes me wake up early, excites me and gets that energy running. Because the first thing is say, where you want to play, right? Is it, let's go back and look at surfers. They wake up 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, it's rainy, cold, and they go and catch the waves. And on Monday, they can't wake up at 8 and they press the snooze button over and over and over. So that's my first invitation, because those are the values, those are the things that are important to you. Start to paying attention. What actually makes you say, oh, I want to go, I'm the first one. That actually gives you your playing field. That is a place where you're going to be, in the zone. Now, the next level is like, okay, this is where I want to be. Which is your best position? Because you want to be there. Maybe your coach, your defense, your whatever position you have. That's now you have to look inside first. What makes you wake up? What's the energy? What brings you the energy? Not drains your energy. What brings you energy? That's the first step.
Yeah, I think that's super, super insightful. And there are so many things that I think fire us up, and we always think like, oh, that's not something other people are excited about, or no one's going to want my expertise on that. And that's a very common objection. But speaking of things that inspire us and fire us up, so TEDx Cherry Creek HS was not your first TEDx stage, is that correct?
That's correct.
It was your second, and then you're going to give a third one coming up, I think, this month, right? So I would love for
Yes.
you to walk me through that. Like, when was your first, like, I want to be on the TEDx stage? What was that like to go into your first talk? And then you did a second one, and now how do you feel going into your third one?
I think the first one was completely random. Somebody mentioned my name to a TEDx organizer and they called me. And it was a very hard process because I had my talk in mind already. And I was, bombarded like 3 sessions, 3 coaching sessions, and just breaking my legs, breaking my arms, and trying to say, this is not working. I was almost gave up. And ultimately, in the fourth session, it just like saw some light and we went through, it was a very pleasant experience. Now, the second one was most like, it was 10 years ago, the first one. Why not try to get another talk? And I think that was the call for the next talk to say, what are the things or what are the themes where I can fit my experience and bring something to the conversation. So that's a bit, and I talked to a couple of people, and all of a sudden I got the call from Cherry Creek HS and say, well, let's go. I say, yes. And
Yeah.
a lot of changes happened through the process. So I was expecting, but there was tough changes.
Yeah. And I think it was really funny. I don't remember how long it was, but you were in the mountains for a little bit, wasn't it? Like you were hiking or something during some of the
Yes.
training, and you were like rewriting your script, your speech, while you're just like no service. Like you couldn't be on some of the calls that I know that we had.
Yes, I was actually, that's funny because, during 2 weeks I was out in Iceland hiking with friends and there was no, so sometimes I was hiking a little bit further back so I could, practice my ideas, but without feedback. So it was very challenging. And 1 week before I got to Denver and I just, I got a panic attack, literally. It's saying, this is not working because I was actually touching something deep inside me on my personal journey, which I struggled in the past. And that was all coming back. It was like somehow hidden in a drawer, and I open it up and it's like, it's not working. So the coaching was an amazing experience. Our coach was absolutely amazing. And one of the things I tell people today is we need to have somebody you trust to
Mm,
share.
mm,
Because when you start sharing your story, you start listening to yourself. And by listening to yourself, you understand your journey. And it wakes you up to things that sometimes are like rocks or anchors holding you back. So that's another tip I came out for me for this experience, the celebration of the 10 years of my first TEDx.
Wow, that's huge congratulations. And you gave an amazing talk. I wasn't able to listen because I was backstage and they were like unmiking me and stuff, but I did watch it on YouTube and it was great, great. So again, I'll make sure I have that in the description so people can click and check that out. It's definitely worth your time. I would love to know. So you're prepping into your third one, that's coming up, I think, in this month or within the next month.
Yes.
So how do you feel going so quickly from one TEDx stage to another?
I think I was not expecting, what the impact would be, but ultimately this TEDx that we did together, we shared stage, was so important for what I'm going to do in the next one, because I feel free to talk about what really matters to me, which is entrepreneurial activity, because we as human beings, we have been entrepreneurs since we lived in caves, because
Mm,
everyone in the tribe had a function, a role, something to do. If you would not add value, you wouldn't be part of the tribe. So that's interesting because we have evolved, and sometimes we just go, it's like industrial revolution. We need resources. We need human resources. So pick whatever option you have on the list with graduation, and that's the resource you're going to be. And we have to break away from that. This is just something you learn to add to the talents you have. And you have to use that not as a human resource, but you are a human with resources. And it
mm.
changed the mindset to go out to the market, because if I'm an engineer, there's no engineering jobs. I sit and wait. No, Engineering is just a title that really doesn't tell who you are, because
Right.
you're much bigger than that.
Definitely, because like I was saying, it's we think that because I mean, I know I struggle with this especially, so I'm speaking mostly for myself, but I think like, "Oh, I can do this," or "I know how to do this. I've done this." So it's like no one else cares as much, you know? Like, "Oh, I can do this." Like I did the TEDx stage, so I'm like, now I'm like, "Oh, TEDx isn't as like cool anymore," you know? And like it's
Yeah.
not true, and I know it's not true,
It's
but I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, anyone could really get it because if I could get it, then like literally anyone could get it. Like don't like I don't feel special about it, which is really crazy for me. Because sometimes then I talk to people and like my biggest dream is to be in a TEDx stage. And I'm like, wow, I should be more like I think grateful to myself and for the opportunity I was given, but also just like we don't get anywhere by discounting ourselves or by thinking that,
Yes.
nothing that we have done matters. And we're just this one, like you mentioned, like a title or something, or we just can somehow do this. But it's like everything that we have is a skill.
Exactly. And one of the things that I learned from changing jobs so often, I remember I'm on an interview and this guy asked me, wow, you did so many things, what's the most challenging thing you've done? And I wanted to work for that company. And I said, the most challenging thing is going through this interview and being hired. But I couldn't say that. Otherwise, I will give the guy the whole power of my future, my life. So I said, and I was like, in a matter of a second, something came out of my mind. It's like, the most challenging thing is the next one. Because if you've done something before, at least half or something about the path to get that done again. But if you face something you've never done before, that's going to always be your biggest challenge. And I think human beings are wired for challenges. You always want to do more because we look back and say, "Oh, that was easy." We don't give the proper recognition to what we have accomplished because we always want more and more and more, right? So I think we have to learn. The next one is going to be always more challenging, but every single one has been a great challenge.
Mhm. That's so funny that you mentioned that, like, you didn't even really think of that answer, it just kinda came out of you, and it's one of those, like it's like you mentioned at the beginning of this interview is the more that, you have these interviews or you have these conversations, you learn a lot about yourself and your own journey, and those are some of those moments where you're not thinking too hard about your life or anything because you're just trying to be in the moment and in the conversation, and then things just come out of you, and you're like, "Wait a minute, I didn't even know, like, I thought of this or I didn't really connect these dots," and it's really fun because that's a great answer. I hope that answer got you the job because
Yes, it
you
did.
deserved it. Perfect. There you go. Because that's an amazing answer. And it's really
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Because I was just thinking about some of the things that I've done. I'm like, yeah, now I when I first my dad first told me to start planning for TEDx, he's like, I really want you to do this. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'll ever get that done. There's no way I'll ever be on a stage, a TEDx stage, like, I can't imagine it. But now I've done it, and now I'm like, "Yeah, it's whatever. It's not a big deal." Because it's not I did it. I accomplished it. I
Yes.
I got through it. So now it's like, "Okay, what could be the next big thing?" So that leads me to my last question before I wrap it up. What are some of your future plans? Like, what are you looking forward to do now that you've done TEDx or you've redone
Um,
TEDx?
yeah, I think TEDx is always an amazing place to actually share your ideas. But ultimately, I'm more, my goal is to have that TEDx to as a tool to actually
Mhm,
lead me to conversations, deeper conversations, because
mhm,
a TEDx is very short, very quick, very straightforward, and you don't have the time to explore that. And one of the ideas is to use this to take that idea, that path I shared through colleges, through organizations, leadership development, because the more we focus on in the inside, the stronger the team will be. So, if you put a team together to play whatever, soccer, football, and you don't know what they can do, it's going to be a bad team, right? But as soon as we know what each one can bring to the table,
mhm.
we can build amazing teams.
Yeah.
And the world, the future is not in isolation or alone, is in groups. We are social animals. We have been connected through tribes, and we just make them maybe too big sometimes. And maybe we have to find the right space or the right size to have a great life.
Yeah. That's really, really great for you to say. Well, Thomas, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing a few minutes, because, like you mentioned, these are the conversations we love having. Obviously, I love having them, given everything that I've done, and you're a great person to have an amazing conversation with. So, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it. This was super fun for me. I love everything that you're talking about in this topic. And again, like I mentioned, his talk will be in the description, as well as different ways you can contact him and reach out and learn more about what he's doing. So, again, thank you for your time. And for everyone watching, I really appreciate you as well, and I will see you next time.